Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a couple camp nuggets up from today's inter-squad scrimmage for the Burgundy and Gold, first Burgundy Gold scrimmage under Coach Dan Quinn. So that'll be up on ESPN.com. And I told you that there will be a McLaurin update, not really an update, but more of an analysis of the situation. People ask, why are they in their spot? Well, this will answer a lot of the questions as to why. So give that a read on ESPN.com. And don't forget, the John Keim Report is presented by AAA. So for this inter-squad scrimmage, one of the things before we get into the specifics, just a couple guys were not able to go today, and I'm going to read you the list. So obviously Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, Sam Cosme, Brandon Coleman, Jordan McGee, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Jonathan Jones, and Bobby Price. Also, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt did not participate in the practice. Now he got dinged a little bit in the shoulder the other night, but my understanding is if it had been like a game setting, then he would have been able to go. So I'm going to scoot over here and get away from the sun. So he would have been able to go in that situation. So, but just as a precautionary measure, did not put him in there, but it did give Chris Rodriguez a chance to get a lot more snaps too today. And I think he did a nice job. So we'll get to more of that in a few minutes. So a little bit more on the setup for this scrimmage. And I do like this, although it's funny, I was talking to Doc Walker on the sidelines, and Doc only shows up when they're in pads, man, because he knows the deal. Like the rest of it is he calls his underwear Olympics. So, and he's right. But back in the day, man, they would go hard in these scrimmages. There was live tackling. There were goal line situations that like you are really, really kind of separating the men from the boys in those drills. But it was a lot more intense, a lot more hitting. The NFL has changed with practices, how things go, the CBA, et cetera. So this is where we're at, where this is actually a good test for them, though. And I think coming off a sloppy game the other night, I think this is a good way to go, especially when you have 6 practices in between your 2 games. So it's a way to stay sharp, I think, to make it different and to maybe develop some coaches along the way. And I told you the other day, I do think when you have a focus on developing coaches, what happens? Young coaches who are talented want to work with you because they know that you will actually help them advance. And I think that was a key part. That's a key part of what Quinn does right now anymore. Anyways, more on the setup. So they went 2 quarters. One was the second quarter, one was the fourth quarter, because they wanted to work end of the half, end of the game situations. And so, it was 15-minute halves, 15-minute quarters. They did not quite finish the last one. I think they was cut it. First of all, they ran enough plays. Secondly, it was starting to get a little bit chippy, but I think they ran enough plays. I think they were pretty sad. So only a couple minutes. Kingsbury and Joe Witt were the head coaches. The play callers, Tavita Pritchard and Brian Johnson, and then Jason Simmons and Tom Donatel on defense. Another thing, like they had to prepare for this right now. This is really wasn't occupying a ton of them, but over the last day, they really prepared for this. Now the players are going through workouts. Like this is still a practice. It's not just designed to have fun and games. This is still a practice. You are still going through situations. It's good versus good, as they like to say, ones versus ones, 2 versus 2. So you're getting a lot out of it. But then from the coach's end, you are kind of preparing in a different way because you're put into a different role. So the head coaches had to prepare differently to get ready for this scrimmage. The assistant coach, the play callers, et cetera. So the other thing that Quinn was going to have them do is this is over the last day. The other thing Quinn was going to have them do is have the head coaches then had to sit down and watch the practice film with somebody from the front office. So I think it was like Kingsbury maybe watched with Lance Newmark. So that's what Quinn does with Adam Peters. So he wanted them to go through the entire process over the course of a day on what it's like to be a head coach in that role. Now, obviously Kingsbury knows, but maybe there's some things that you can start to work on or just, that you want to change a little bit, whatever it is, right? But it just gives you that taste. Now, for the other ones being elevated to play callers, Brian Johnson's been a play caller, but Pritchard has not. Jason Simmons has not. And then Tom Donatel has not. So that's a big help for them, and it's how they develop and grow. But it's been a key point for Quinn. And again, I think it's something that when you want to attract talented people to your place, that's one way to do it. Another way is to have a really good quarterback, and they do. Although not the best day for the offense and for Jaden either. All right, let's see what else. A lot of intensity, a lot of talking before the practice got going. Ken Norton, the linebackers coach, always in the middle of whatever talk is going on. You can always hear him talking. So that's also he very much stands out in that regard. And there's another instance later in the game where in the scrimmage where he was like that. Then the other thing that was obvious, Terry McLaurin was on the sidelines. That's the first time we've seen him on the sidelines during a practice open to the media. Any practice closed to the media right now is a walkthrough. So if he's been on the sidelines for the walkthrough, I don't know. But he was out here today. It's the first time we saw him. He was out here in a burgundy hoodie, had the hoodie over his head. I think trying to be somewhat inconspicuous. Did talk to I know JP Finlay or Channel 4 NBC caught him talking to Adam Peters on the sideline. So obviously that's what you like to see. I don't know what they're talking about. The fact that they're talking, you need to maintain that relationship, because when this is all said and done, both sides need the other to make this work. And so you need to maintain that level of maintain a level of communication. Clearly, McLaurin has been very frustrated with the front office in particular, because when you see him around the players, you see him around some other coaches, you see him around the owner, he seems all smiles. So anyways, that's one thing to note. I think, like I said, I think it's good that they talked regardless. Yeah, and then during the practice, I just kind of look at my notes. There's a lot to remember. During the practice, he hung out on the sidelines talking to Jaden Daniels a lot. So he was on the Burgundy sidelines with him as well. So, so what jumped out during the scrimmage? Well, first of all, the first team offense, again, did not look sharp. So that's been an unfortunate theme over the last week or so now. There were parts in the New England joint practice where they looked pretty good, and Jaden Daniels looked pretty good, got in a rhythm. I would say today they did not look very good, and there was no rhythm whatsoever on that offense. A couple plays that they did have a long drive that took almost 9 minutes to start the quote unquote second half, or the fourth quarter. Did not result in points. So the gold team, who actually wore white jerseys, you can't wear gold now because the quarterbacks are in gold, and that's why they're in gold, so you don't hit them. Anyways, but the gold team ended up winning 14-0. By the way, they got these T-shirts that says All Ashburn. That was their prize for winning. So all the winning team got those All Ashburn T-shirts. Back to the offense. No rhythm whatsoever. And again, that was the one drive. Otherwise, a couple failed fourth down plays, not very good on third down. Just not a good day overall for the offense. I will say the defense, though, looked pretty good, and a lot of pressure up the middle. A lot of pressure on Daniels forced some of those issues, but just even when he was throwing, not great rhythm. Defensive backs did really well for them and for the gold team. That's of course that was a starting defensive group. So that's a good sign. I think, if you want to take a silver lining, it's the defense looked good. And I think the one thing too, when you talk to offensive coaches, like while they're freaking out beyond their walls, I think first, the couple things they know. One, McLaurin and Noah Brown aren't out there. Two, they're not game planning. Now, neither is the defense. But I think, is it more important maybe for the offense to game plan? Perhaps. So, but I will say this, like last year, they weren't game planning either, and they looked pretty good. Also against a worse defense. So you always contextualizing this can be difficult, but what I know is the gold defense definitely got the better of them today. So let's go over some notes here. All right. Again, on a four, there was one of the best scoring opportunities for the Burgundy team. It was just a failed chance, because I think it was a 1st and 10. It would have been about a 55-yard touchdown pass, something like that. You had Debo, and then you had Jalen Lane on the outside of Debo, and you had Debo was covered by Sanders still, and then Amos had Jalen Lane. Both receivers won on the route. Both receivers were open. Samuel down inside, and Jaden throws it to him, lofts the ball, overthrows him. He was open. He was open by a few yards, and so was Jalen Lane. And one of the things I was talking to Bobby Ingram about that, the receivers coach afterwards, and he was like, the one thing he liked about Jalen on that play, even though he doesn't get the ball, was the acceleration and how he continued to accelerate and create more distance. So that's something. So yes, it was an incomplete pass, but they liked what they saw from Lane on the play, and also from Debo. He was open. Jaden just missed him, and he missed him by a few yards. So it was not. So I say there's some throws that he was making today. Like we didn't see those throws last year. This is one practice, so don't extrapolate too much from what we saw today. Now you can add it up over time and say this is what we've been seeing, but I think today was even more so with some of the issues for sure. I think, like I said, he looked better against New England. I think the pressure also was a factor as well. I thought Mikey Sanders still had a really good start to this, a really good day as well, except for that one coverage. Like he had first play, he defends it, knocks, breaks up a pass. He had another pass where it was like a third down where you have Debo and he's one-on-one with Debo in the flat, wraps him up. Now, again, with Debo, you always say, would he have broken that play? Would he have broken the tackle? That case, I don't think he would have. So good job by Sanders still there. Again, I mentioned the pressure up the middle. Dorrance Armstrong was a key guy there. Multiple times I saw him getting through the offensive line, whether on the outside or standing up, rushing through the middle. That's something to definitely watch this season as well. I've been talking about that, but I think Armstrong's had a solid camp for sure. There were a couple of plays that were blown dead for the Burgundy because it would have been they ruled it would have been a sack. Now you don't know for sure because it's Jane Daniels who can get out of a lot of stuff, but that's what they had officials here. They blew it dead. And again, I brought up Sanders still had a nice play where defended a slant pass to KJ Osborne, and it was a hot read, good read by Daniels, good, not a bad ball, good job by Sanders. So I do wonder if that's 17. I think that's a catch. So you have to kind of like put guys in spots, and that's a play that Terry McLaurin makes. Now they're not necessarily always in the same spot, so you take that, but like that's a play where you're going to a slant to McLaurin a lot. And I've already brought up a couple other nice plays by Sanders still. I thought the cornerbacks overall were pretty good. So there's another time, 4th down and 4. They have, before practice, like Quinn joked about how if it's 4th down, Kingsbury's just going to go for it. And sure enough, on the first 4th down, it's like a 4th down and 10, incomplete. But then there was a 4th and 4 where they went for it as well. You have Daniels and Zach Ertz cutting over the middle, but Von Miller drops into coverage in the right spot. Ball comes, knocks it away. There you go. One time with Daniels, tried to throw a crosser to Michael Gallup, just couldn't lead him. One time to Ertz. Ertz a cross over the middle. He has to throw the ball because he's getting pressure. Ertz is not looking back. For whatever reason, like they just didn't connect, and it could have just been as simple as the pressure's there. You got to get rid of the ball, but it had no chance of being complete. Another one was going back to Sanders. A ball out to the right to Luke McCaffrey. Sanders pops him. Ball out. The ball, again, knocks it, or excuse me, not actually, I think he caught that one, but McCaffrey gets knocked to the ground, and a good pop by Sanders. Wind knocked out of him, had to walk off the field. He was able to walk off the field, but he came right back on. But, so there you go. Daniels overthrows him one time, misses on a swing route to a swing pass to Eckler another time. Jalen Lane is starting at 3rd down and 10, just cutting back inside. Good read, right read, ball's going to be there. Lane slips and can't get the ball. So a lot of mishaps by the offense, just not working by the first team offense. And it's an unfortunate day for them for sure. Are you concerned about that? Like, I'm not at this point, but I think you want to see better as they continue to progress. But again, 17 will have to be here at some point unless he really wants to impact his future, I think, in a way that he would not like. I think it would be tough for him to get paid the way he wants if he ends up sitting out any amount of time during the season. Maybe I don't know if that's even a plan for him or not. He hasn't talked to us. I don't know. I haven't gotten that sense, but I have no idea for sure if that be the case. I know some other players are holding in, might threaten that. But if he does that, again, you don't get paid your game check. But then I think it also impacts your value in the offseason. Like, yeah, they would know you missed the game, but if you come in and it's sluggish, now you have a few more games, you're getting used to it. Now you don't have the numbers. Now they're looking at you as a 31-year-old receiver. So that's why I say I think he'll get in there. Noah Brown, I just don't know. I haven't seen him out there doing anything. So until we do, then it makes it hard to really know where he's at and what he might do. But it's funny because like one of the things in talking to people here about McLaurin, like how long will it take to get him ramped up and get into action? As everybody keeps telling me, we have a plan. In other words, they have a plan to get him, like obviously just kind of work him back into football shape. and get them going to what they need. So that way, because it's someone else like, there's no like, oh, every receiver needs this amount of time to get ramped up, right? It's not like that, right? But you want to get guys time, ideally a couple weeks on the field, get at least 4 or 5 practices where you start to get your legs underneath you. This is a high-paced offense, and it's one thing that takes a minute to kind of get your breath and get used to. Now you can sub him in and out, but you want him on the field for sure. But again, they keep saying they have a plan. As far as the offensive line goes, Trent Scott subbed in for Laramie Tunsil, who did work early on. Josh Connolly Jr. at right tackle. So, and then of course it was Wiley, Allegretti, Biotis. And again, I told you, I think Connolly is improving. There was another throw, and this is a good play by Trey Amos. So an inverted cover two. So actually, no, it wasn't inverted. So it was because Amos was still maintaining the corner, but it was a cover two. So he dropped to the right depth. They disguised it initially, dropped to a cover two. Amos drops, but he gets really good depth. And Jaden tries to drop it into Gallup. And it's not a bad decision at all. It's just a really good play by Amos to be back there, ends up tipping it away. And, one of the things that you want like corners to learn, hey, if there's no one in front of you, you got to get depth because that's where they're going. That's what he did. So just a good, mature play by him. So good instincts, good read, good coverage overall. So, I think that was, and a couple plays later, then there was another deep one to Jalen Lane against Amos, tight coverage. Lane tries to dive for the ball and can't come up with it because there really was not a lot of room to really do that. Good coverage there. The other guy I want to talk about is safety Jeremy Reaves. Spent a lot of time with the ones today. I do think like they opened up the series, their second quote unquote second quarter, which the first series he opened up in the defense in a 3 safety look. So I think they're going to use him a lot more than they have in the past. I think for a couple reasons. One, they just really like what they've seen from him. 2, he's playing fast, like recovering from that injury. Last year, you start to get your speed back the following year after you come back. And then also, I think he's just playing faster. And part of it is understanding the defense. You see the pops that he had the other night. You see the passion he plays with. But the reason why he's last is because he's a smart player. And I think you see that out here. Like he understands the defense. He understands where he needs to be in relation to others. He can communicate it very well. So there's a lot that he adds more than, in the past, like he was showing a lot of this stuff, but I think he's playing faster now. And so I think they have a plan to use him more. And I think it's warranted. I think he's earned it. And, when you talk to players, like talent is great. Like it's great to have talent. Smarts is a lot. You need to have the smarts to play this game, especially for what they're asking to do. Like those safeties, whether it's he or Tyler Owens, like they want them to play different spots. So you have to really understand what you're doing and what the offense is trying to do to you to really succeed. And I think that's what he's doing. I also mentioned that I think Armstrong's done a nice job throughout camp and again today. I thought Chris Rodriguez did a nice job today for the most part. Now, there was one play where Duke Riley got him, but he got his revenge a couple plays later. But, I think it was a good chance for Rodriguez to get some action with Krosky Merritt not participating today. And so I think Rodriguez did a nice job when he played at times last year. I don't know how he fits on this roster yet because I think McNichols probably makes it. Good special teams showed out. He's shown no reason to not keep him around. At this point, I think Krosky Merritt makes it. How does Rodriguez fit in? But if nothing else, he continues to go out there and put some good tape out there. And today, I think it was one of those. He had a couple nice runs around the end. Good cuts. But also, he did have one time where he gets popped on a ball throw from I can't remember if it's Hartman or Josh Johnson, but Duke Riley pops and ball pops out. However, a couple plays later, it was Hartman actually on the throw because a couple plays later, Hartman scrambles and extends the play around the end, starts running the sidelines, and you have Rodriguez at the goal line sustaining his block against Duke Riley. So just a really good job there. That's the kind of stuff you look for. It's not just the runs, it's how you're playing away from the ball and what you do other ways to contribute. And that's what he did there. Like the communication on D, to the point where there's one time where Jaden starts to get into his cadence, and I hear that a few guys on defense watch the hard count, watch the hard count. So he has to pause, and on that play, the defense holds the discipline. 92 loops in, gets a sack. And by the way, speaking of again, it got a little bit chippy. One of the things that Javon Kinlaw talked about afterwards was how proud he was of the defense for not, or over the team for not succumbing to the chippiness and maybe leading to, as he said, some scuffles. So he talked about the discipline. Other players talked about how fun it was, but he also talked about the discipline to not let it evolve into something more, because they were having fun with it. But you know how there's a competitive guys get chippy, like it can get like, if you have brothers, you know that, like, you can get chippy and it's fun, and then all it takes is one guy to say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and that chippiness goes a little bit further. But today they withstood it from going further for sure. I think Hartman looked better than he did the other night, for sure. He looked better than he did the other night. Still working ahead of Josh Johnson in terms of the rotation. Now, whether or not that's trying to get him more snaps because of coming off that shoulder surgery, or is it that he's still ahead? Johnson has looked better, but Hartman looked much better today than he did the other day. The other guy, like Ja'Cory Brooks, I know he's a guy that when they talk about their young receivers, he's one of them, and Jacoby Jones is one of them too, that they're in addition to Jalen Lane. But when you're talking about other guys, I don't know that means he's going to make the roster. Like I said, I think I've always viewed him as a practice squad guy, but one of the things they like about him is not that you can get size, quickness, speed, whatever, but they like that he can make plays. Now, the other thing he has to do is stay on side. He got called for a false start today. He got called for the one last week where Jalen had to kind of boot him out, but he has, he did not do anything really today, but in the games he has, and I think in other practice he has enough to where, again, he's on the radar for at least a practice squad for sure. Hartman, again, off script, did a nice job. One of his best ones was Dominic Felton down the sidelines. It was on a 4th down play, scramble to the right, just lost it over, and Felton takes it and runs, gets inside the 5. A couple plays later, little option toss to Chris Rodriguez, touchdown. Good block. I think on that one was Michael Strawn. So that was a good job by him. There was a nice little screen to Colson Yankoff, where Foster Sorrell used his size to really kind of help open something up there. And, I think that was a good job too. Let's see what else we have here. Thought Noah Benogany did a pretty good job. Good coverage. Reed at the end broke the play. And again, they stopped it after that play. And again, they were starting to get a little bit chippy, but that's okay. I think overall it was pretty good. Carlin Vigors had another nice breakup against, I'm trying to remember the receiver Bradshaw. Good coverage. I think one of the things to watch with Vigors, how do you respond to what he played like 70 snaps the other night? That's a lot for your first preseason game. I think, there was some decent plays, but you saw he's got to learn how to tackle at the NFL level. I think it was a little bit of I think it's a shock to any defensive back system, because it's a different, man, these dudes are bigger and they're coming at you faster. So you've got to get used to that. So I'll be curious to see how he progresses in that area. But in practice, he continues to look solid. And again, another guy who, whether or not he makes the roster, certainly a practice squad, strong practice squad guy. I mean, I'd be shocked if he's not on their practice squad unless somebody else would claim him. There was one play by Keim that I really liked too, a little run play up the middle. He's encroaching up to the line, gets up there quick, gets off Tyler Biadasz, stuffs the back in the hole. Good job there for sure. And again, like Ken Norton, always talking. There was one time there's a break in the action. He's on the Burgundy side, so he's looking at the white, and the white huddle is like, you don't want this smoke. Get your sorry asses back in the huddle. So I think he always keeps it loose, and I think that's always a good thing. And by the way, I said today I was going to play a Johnny Newton interview. I think because this one probably went longer, I'm going to hold that one for a couple days and just play it when I have a shorter camp update. Anyway, folks, that's it for today. I thought it was a good workout, and I think there was good energy. And I know, like, Bram has talked about this, about some energy lacking. And I think at times you can see that, but I think part of that stems from the offense just not making big plays. Energy comes from being able to make those big plays. They're not out here hanging their heads. I don't think it's been terrible at all. But I think when you can make those plays, that brings energy on both sides. Defense, a lot of energy. So, and it's, again, I think from an offense perspective, the energy, you need those big plays. They haven't gotten those big explosive plays consistently enough like they did last year. And again, 17, 85, when they come back, things look a little bit different for that offense. Because I do think like Deebo Samuel has been looking pretty good. When you add him along with those other two, things look just a little bit different, folks. So anyway, that's it for me. I will be back with another episode. They're off on Wednesday, or we're not out here Wednesday. So I'll be back with another episode on Thursday. So I'll talk to you next time.